Hello and welcome to episode 116 of Learn, Do, Become Radio. Today we're talking about expanding our influence in a way that feels fun.
Yay!
And I'm here with my husband, Eric.
Hello. Good to be with you.
This is part 5 of our 5-part Arise series.
Which means it's the last one. 5 of 5.
We'll have the links to ARIS, all of those in the show notes page. But today we're talking about the E, which is expanding our influence.
I wanted to have it be Eric, but April is not having it. So it's going to stand for expand.
We could have A stand for April and E for Eric.
There we go.
Okay. All of the things that we're going to talk about today are going to be linked on our show notes page, which is learndobecome.com/episode 116. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about what expand means. Basically, we found that most people in our Learn, Do, Become community want to serve in a bigger way.
But that doesn't mean they want to go out and start a nonprofit or build a business or take on some huge project. All of us want to do something that's meaningful, that can have an influence, but it can be in a small, local, very close to home type of way.
So our goal in this podcast is just to help all of us to think a little bit bigger, but we're not talking about making things harder.
We're not talking about expanding ourselves. We don't have to go buy a new wardrobe. It's just expanding our reach, our influence, the way that we could have a positive impact in somebody else's life.
And hopefully that will help all of us to be able to open opportunities where we can leave a legacy that feels really good. And I want it to feel fun for you, because when I started thinking as a little girl, when I would think about, I want to write books or I want to do something that can help the world as I get older, it always seemed a little bit complicated. And I just thought something
scary,
magic had to happen.
It's out there. It's bigger. It's like outside
scary.
our comfort zone. And we want to maybe just take a second as you're listening to this right now. Just think for a moment, what are some of the initial thoughts or feelings that come to your mind as you think about being in a place where you could expand and have a little bit more of an influence or an impact? Does it feel scary? Does it feel hard? Does it feel like something you wouldn't know how to do or wouldn't be able to start because you're overwhelmed or overloaded? And as we talk to get together in this recording, we want to help maybe get over some of those mental or emotional blocks that keep us from moving in a direction, because no matter where we are, even if we're not perfectly positioned to do everything or something substantial, even wherever we are, anyone listening to this, you can do something to have an influence and to expand that influence with others.
Love it. Okay, so we're just going to share a few principles, and we're not obviously giving like the answer for your life.
Here is the answer.
But the idea is that this is food for thought. So the first principle is that you can't not have an influence. I was teaching a class one time and I asked the group of people in the class, how many of you watch other people more than they know you're watching them? And everyone raised their hands.
That makes everybody a stalker.
I think all of us do it. Social media stalking.
Goodness.
We're all going to watch, even just, friends or neighbors or people at the store. You're kind of watching them and observing.
We're social creatures.
Right?
We look around, we observe, we try to learn and understand things and maybe try to figure out how to do something better.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense.
Everyone raised their hands and agreed, yes, I do. And then I asked the question, well, how many of you think you're probably being watched more than you originally thought you were?
Dun, dun, dun.
And at first, 2 people raised their hand, and then the whole class thought, oh, wait, hang on.
Who's watching me right now?
And I think it helped everyone to realize that you have an influence and people are watching your example or your lack of an example, but people are paying attention to what you're doing. So I think whether we're, doing a kind thing for somebody and just the way we have conversations in our family or the way we go about our work, our regular interactions at the grocery store, things like that, people are watching and you're
Well, it's at
having
any
influence.
age or stage of our life, because I actually have a chance to work with some college-age students in kind of some mentoring roles. And as I talk with them or interview them in different capacities, I'll actually ask them how they've decided to make some of the decisions they've made. And they'll always cite the example of people 3 to 5 years older than them that they've been watching when they were teenagers finishing high school, for example, and they were the younger crowd. And I ask the same question of them. I actually say, hey, do you think as you're making some of these important decisions in your life now, do you think there are younger, like youth and maybe some young adults watching you to see what you're doing? And so again, all of our choices, all of our actions have an impact. And it doesn't always have to be a perfect impact. And sometimes it doesn't always have to be well, it doesn't always have to be a great impact, right? We're just living our lives. We're trying to do the best we can, but just realizing that, like April said, you can't not have an influence. And so why not look for ways to think about how we can shape those to be positive and uplifting wherever we can?
And maybe a question I'm asking myself right now as I'm listening to this is, if I know that every day in every interaction I'm having some impact, is there anything that I want to change or just improve in my own personal character so that I have a better impact? Like maybe being a little bit more patient on the phone. If I'm calling, like the other day, we had this issue where we were trying to change a SIM card in a phone, and there were just some things that we were going through with our phone service. And the person on the other line was not very helpful. And in fact, I felt like I was getting the wrong information, and I wanted to speak to the person's supervisor, and they wouldn't give me the supervisor. And I was getting a little impatient. And at the very end, I was asking my son who was with me, I said, did I sound okay? Was I super mean? And he's like, no, you weren't mean. I'm not really a mean person. But I just thought back for a moment to my mom one time when I listened to her. She was developing Alzheimer's at the time, and she answered the phone, which we tried to keep her from answering the phone, but she would do it anyway.
Unsuccessfully.
And so she answers the phone and she's like, hello. And then after a moment, she called out to my dad and said, hey, Bob, do we need a new roof? And my dad replied, no, Zoe, we don't need a new roof. Whatever.
They didn't just have it done like 3 years before?
They just had it done. She didn't remember, so he was kind of getting impatient. And so I watched my mom to see what she was going to do as she went back to the phone. And she said, I'm sorry, but my husband's a party pooper. And I just started laughing quietly to myself. And then she said, but you have a lovely voice, and I wish you the best with your sales. And I just thought, could there have been a kinder response to that person? Because being a telemarketer has got to be one of the hardest jobs in the world, I think. You're just getting shut down and maybe yelled at a lot. But my mom was so kind, trying to give them a compliment, even though we didn't need a new roof.
Even though she called your dad a party pooper.
A party pooper. That's like our family joke now. You're being a party pooper. But just that one little idea that helped me to just want to be kinder. And my mom was always a really good example of that. My mom and dad, they were always kind. Every person at the store, anyone who's helping us, at the gas station or wherever we were. So I just think as we're looking at not just the strangers we interact with, but also our family, how we're treating, your spouse or your children or neighbors, I think that means a lot.
Yes, it does.
Ready to move to number 2?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Second principle. You want to share
They didn't
that?
know there was a number 2, but
There's
here comes
3.
number 2. The third of 3 will be the last one. So there is often incredible power in the simple things of life. So like April said, our parents, I think all of our families are great influences on us in all kinds of ways. But just looking at our mothers, for example, they both made an incredible impact on the world, usually one by one. And if you asked either of them, April's mom has passed and my mom's still living and we visit her and talk to her. But if you ask the question, do you feel like you're making a substantial impact on people? Are you expanding and having this influence? They'd be like, "Oh no, I'm
pretty simple.
I just do what I do. I
I
love to be helpful to people where I can." But I think that's the right attitude to start with, right? And you never really know the full reach of the ripple from like the pebbles you may cast, how far those ripples run, or all the fruit that comes out of the seeds you plant. I love that phrase that says you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you'll never know the number of apples in a seed. Mm-hmm. So one seed, if planted and nurtured and grows into a tree and it's cultivated year after year after year, how many seeds did you affect? So I know we've all heard that before, but I think just think about the tremendous impact that each of us can have with one small act, one small kind thought, a smile, even just these seemingly simple things. But like with my mom, we kind of laughingly refer to her as the package queen.
She's so cute.
This amazing woman can put more stuff into any size box that she wants to mail to a family member, a grandchild, a friend, whatever. And it is just full of all kinds of stuff that just show her personality, her love, the kinds of things they love.
And there's stickers all over the outside.
Well, literally the box is packed. It doesn't need any packing materials because she uses the contents of the package to make it so unmovable and unbreakable. That box is just chock full. We probably ought to photo document one and put it up as a post at Learn to Become. You guys can marvel at her
awesome.
Artistry. But then that's not all, right? The outside of the brown box that she's not a brown box anymore. Mm-mm. She literally covers it with all kinds of things that she's cut out or photocopied or saved or stickers or all kinds of, like the box is a designed work of art in and of itself. Then, to make sure it's totally safe and unintruded, she wraps it in so many layers of all kinds of, I don't know.
And waterproof. It's packing tape.
It's packing tape. It's taped up. Whatever she does, if you threw it in the ocean, it would not sink. And you could come to it years later and open it and it would be in pristine condition.
Oh, we love her.
So like the package, and everybody who gets a package from Peg loves the package. Mm-hmm. And she remembers birthdays. She'll write letters to people who are lonely or forgotten. She just does all kinds of things like that. But that's just kind of her natural thing. She just likes to do that. And I don't think she thinks she's expanding or she's having some influence, but
Yeah.
truly she is.
We went to her house the other day we were having a family group text, and she said, okay, well, I need to go now. I've got some things I need to work on. And then she put another text in 2 hours later and said, well, I actually just got off the phone after a 2-hour conversation because I have a neighbor and she was really lonely and she's kind of a shut-in and she just wanted to talk. And I just remember thinking, wow, that was so nice of your mom to take those 2 hours to talk with this neighbor. And I mean, obviously she can't do that every day.
It's not something
She has
any of
other
us could
things.
do each day.
And
but
your mom's retired now,
Right.
so that's a little different.
But when you see an opportunity, if you take an opportunity for 5 or 10 minutes here, and then maybe a few days later, there's another opportunity, just that ability to look for ways and to conscientiously find ways to expand and have that influence. That's one of the things we're hoping we can kind of help catalyze with this conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, Eric and I also don't want to make it sound like we have like the perfect family and everything's perfect in our lives, but I also
We don't, because I'm in it.
But we do both have really good mothers and fathers and just good families. But the thing is, I just want to pause for a moment because as we were coming into this principle and talking about simple things of life, I know not everybody has immediate family members who are like positive influences on them.
Right. Well, I mean,
Sometimes it's
to
a
be
struggle.
quite candid, I mean, like we have great parents, but like my dad has, a background and a history, and he's right now kind of in a care facility because he has some early onset dementia and Alzheimer's. But I mean, it hasn't always been just just not, I guess, to create some relatability here.
Yeah.
We love our parents. I think all of us generally do. But that doesn't mean all of our growing up situations, our parental influences that we've had on us, that have been had on us, or our family situations are ideal. So
Yeah.
I think we all do our best to live and learn and roll with punches and try to make the best of things. So
yeah, and see the good. I guess that's another way too, because even if you have maybe a family member who has mental illness, or maybe someone who struggled with drug abuse or alcoholism, typically there's something that's
there's some redemptive features in there. I mean, I know my dad has struggled since he was in his 20s with bipolar disorder, and it's been pretty severe. And he's now in his early 70s. So it's been a long life for him and a lot of things he's had to wrestle with and struggle with. But it's also had an impact on family and children. And, but over time, the passage of time allows you to maybe find some of those kind of silver linings or virtues in there. And so in many cases now, he's forgotten a lot of the past, and he's just more of a cheery guy with that memory loss and a care center where they're able to take really good care of him. So when family comes to visit him, there are a lot of good things there. And he's a very friendly, funny, corny kind of, he's a character, right? And so like our daughters and sons love to go visit him with me. And I mean, it's always an adventure, right? So, but it doesn't mean family situations are perfect. And
yeah. Well, and your dad actually shared a really sweet story with us talking about how someone else had served him. He was a fruit farmer and he loved to grow peaches, and he was really proud of his peaches in particular. I just remember him telling this one story, and he told us a story where he got a letter from someone who had purchased, I don't know if it's just one box of peaches or several boxes of peaches, but they purchased a significant number of peaches. And then they wrote in this beautiful handwritten letter that just said, oh, I just want to let you know those were the best peaches that I've ever had. I really appreciated you bringing them and delivering them. And he kept that letter for years. When he showed it to us,
he cherishes stuff like that.
It was years old.
And I mean, my dad, he was a good man. He'd work hard. He was a fruit farmer most of his life with some odd jobs on the side. But, just that story brings up others that we'd truck a lot of fruit up into, other, kind of around the state and other surrounding states. And when we get there, we do as much as we could to sell it roadside or call ahead and have some contacts help sell the fruit. But again, at the end of the trip, if we hadn't sold all the boxes of peaches or tomatoes or cherries or corn or things that we'd taken up, like one of the things he would do is he would call a local religious leader and just say, hey, are there people in your congregation who need some stuff like this? Or he'd find people in the community. If he couldn't sell it and we needed to get back home to keep working the farm, he would look for ways to kind of have those drop-offs. So, I mean, it's powerful that, we didn't have a ton growing up, and, fruit farmers wasn't like the most, I guess, high-earning occupation then. I mean, we were okay, but, just being able to watch him with that ability to grow the fruit and grow beautiful fruit that he loved, and then leave it for people to be able to enjoy, it's a form of expanding, right? That form of influence and just trying to leave people better off and to serve them with whatever you have.
Yeah, I love that. And maybe just one final thing I'll just share that I learned from my parents is that they never treated me like I was an annoyance. They always welcomed me home after school. They would listen if I had questions. And I just felt like they were present. They weren't preoccupied. And I think in a world that has smartphones now and a lot going on, I feel like it's a little harder for me to rise to that. But that's something that every day I try to do, is make that eye contact and that connection, because I think as we're looking at expanding, there's often a tendency to look at what's going to give you praise or maybe media attention or numbers somewhere. And often the most impactful work that we're going to do is happening just in our relationships with the people who are around us, especially in our own homes.
I think that's a good point. I think our technology and our world and everything we're kind of expected to do or to be, it can be really cumbersome. And so I guess, as we're getting ready to transition to this last point, we'll talk about just one maybe question I'd invite you as you're listening to think about is, what talents and abilities or gifts do you have? I call it the tag principle. Each of us have been given or have been able to develop certain talents, abilities, and gifts. Are you a great note or letter writer? Are you a great package maker sender? Do you have a very artistic flair where you could create something beautiful to share with somebody? Are you a gardener that could create, grow fruits or vegetables?
Just kind and you can leave comments or send messages.
Just think for a moment about your talents, abilities, and gifts before we get any further into this recording, to be able to just think, okay, what do I have that and you might. Sometimes some people are really hard on themselves. They just don't see what they have, and they have an ability. And I had a friend once who invited a group of youth he was speaking to say, take a moment and think about what your talents, abilities, and gifts are, your tags. And if you can't think of them, then talk to someone who knows you and loves you and ask them what your talents, abilities, and gifts are. So sometimes it's required for us to go outside ourselves, to have someone who's close to us, who we know, love, and trust, and who knows and loves and trusts us, to be able to give us a little bit of that feedback. But I invite you to think about that just for a moment here, because identify just one or two of those talents, abilities, or gifts, and then just think, okay, how could I use that in a very simple way occasionally in my life, periodically, to do some good, to expand, to reach out and influence or bless somebody?
I love that question. And then just the third principle, I think, just builds on that there's a limitless number of creative ways you can expand your influence in a way that feels fun.
That's why I asked that question before, so people can think about what they do.
Good job.
As we share some examples of people we've seen in our local communities. And again, some of these are a little bigger and some of these are just very local.
So I'm going to start with one. I was a student at Woodrow Wilson High School in Long Beach. That's where I grew up, Long Beach, California. And I did cheerleading, and our cheer advisor usually just pulled a teacher who was willing to do it. And the teacher who was our cheer advisor, the person who came, took roll and went to all the football games with us and things like that, was Erin Gruel. And she has founded the Freedom Writers, I don't know if it's Foundation, but if there's a movie called The Freedom Writers, which is based on her experience. And I was there at the high school when she was doing this massive work in her freshman English classes. And she was able to, I can't talk the whole story right now, but the book is amazing. We'll link to the book. The movie's great. But what I loved about her is she took these students who a lot of people had dismissed as not being willing to learn or not being interested in education.
Maybe they didn't have the same resources or opportunities coming up through an educational program, and so they were kind of on the side.
Yeah.
And she grabbed them and truly involved them.
And she empowered them to learn how to write and how to share their stories and how to be able to make an impact by helping people to understand kind of what they'd gone through and help them to look at their lives in a really positive way and help them all to be able to move on to college. I was going to say,
we won't tell you how the movie ends, but in this group of like 20 to 25 students she was working with.
Well, it was more than that. It was several classes.
Just each class, though. Yeah. Out of each class there, guess what happened with those students who were invested in and believed in by a woman who took a lot of time in her day job as a teacher, but she also invested tremendous personal resources and time, even some of the money that she and her husband had, a little bit of their resources.
She worked
extra to try
jobs.
To create opportunities. So she went above and beyond the call. So many of our educators do. But the impact and influence she had,
she would come into, sometimes if we didn't have any cheer practice or whatever on a certain day, we were just kind of hanging out, she would tell us about what was going on. I remember one time she told us about a student, they went to the library and they were getting library books, or they were talking about getting a library card. I can't remember all the details, but basically this student had never been to a library and had never had his own library card or checked out his own book. And she was just in tears talking about this experience and how he was starting to become excited about reading. And then there was another student who was taking the bus to school and didn't want to be seen as a scholarly type of person because he was afraid that he would be like hurt on the way to school. So when he would do his homework, he would wad it up in a ball and pretend like it was a piece of trash, and he would carry his homework to school in just this crumpled up, ball in his fist. And then he'd get to school and he'd, smooth it out and turn it in. But I mean, it was just these little stories where she was helping these students go from, these circumstances that were really challenging that, as I looked back on it, I didn't read the book until it had been published. It was years after I'd graduated from high school. But as I read the book and realized how many stories were going on in the lives of my peers, and I didn't even know about it, it was really humbling to me and really touching to me to see what she'd created. And she has a podcast now, a Freedom Writers podcast, and she does amazing things. I need to get back in touch with her. She's awesome. So that's just one example of someone who really, took her skills, I love the tag, right? Talents, abilities,
TAG.
and gifts. Took that to the next level.
So we'll just talk about a few others quickly, and just to give you an idea of just the kinds of things that are happening in a very local or just with the skills they have. There was actually another woman who lived in Southern California where we were, and just being able to look at the situation of a lot of the students in elementary school situations and just realizing the need for maybe more movement and exercise and fitness. She actually started something called the 100 Mile Club, which was a club that largely started before school, maybe like a half an hour before. Students could get there and they'd have like a little area they would move around, a track or a little course around the elementary schools. And this quickly expanded to more and more elementary schools as principals and PTAs found out about it. But you had all kinds of kids showing up to you'd get a stick every quarter mile, and then you got 4 sticks, it was a mile. And once you got to 25 miles and 50 and 75 and 100 miles, you'd get a different T-shirt.
Well, you got one T-shirt
and you could put a check mark on the back. It had a place to mark at 25, 50. So it was almost like an interesting status symbol.
Yeah.
And like at little school assemblies, they'd have all the kids who are at certain, mile markers, milestones, stand up. But literally, like all of our children, so many of the children in the community, so many schools in the surrounding area really got into this. And a lot of the schools would do kind of places after school, sometimes activities and little parties to gather the community and give them a chance to keep walking or running.
Yeah.
And so kids were just going past. I mean, I think some kids were getting up into the couple hundreds, like almost 300.
Almost 500. They had someone who set a goal. But I honestly thought no one was going to want to do it. When I first heard about it, I thought, why would students want to just run in circles for sticks when they could go play on the slide or play on the playground or do something else? But then I got there and the entire playground was just moving in this
oval with this weird, it would actually move around the area of the backyard of the school, which was just this weird shape. And so they got a half mile or a quarter mile loop in there. But all the kids were talking or laughing. It was like a socializing
everyone was doing
experience.
it. And then parents would bring their strollers. I got to come.
Yeah, we took our youngest, who wasn't in school yet.
He was 3.
He was 3 and literally doing this for 2 years. He was like, I'm not going home anymore after this. I want to stay. It was actually one of the reasons why he started in kindergarten. He's one of the youngest in his age group. He was ready for it. But he's like, I don't want to go home. I want to be here. The things they do here are fun, right?
And he would pray at night and he would thank God for the stick ladies. And I was like, what are you doing? He goes, the stick ladies, the ladies who pass out the sticks at 100 Mile Club.
And it was interesting because it was also an integrity thing. Kids wouldn't cheat on the sticks. If they found sticks on the ground that someone else had dropped, they'd turn them in. I mean, anyway, I don't know if this good woman knew what she was doing when she started this club for a couple schools in her local area. But just things like that tend to have that ripple effect. It was just super fun.
Another one is Mr. Z. He lived in our city that we moved from in California. But he had actually grown up not knowing how to read until he was
into his early to mid adulthood.
He just kind of faked it all through school.
I mean, there are a couple of videos out there of different people, like movies that have actually talked about how this kind of youth to adult illiteracy is very much a situation out there. And he was able to move through his life kind of faking it, kind of covering things. But I forget his story about when he actually came to.
I need to go research the whole story, but I know I just met him because he ran the library story time for kids. And so we moved there, we found the library. They said, oh, you must come to story time. It's every week with Mr. Z and everyone loves him. And I thought, oh, okay. So I showed up with my kids and he would tell the best stories. He would do the voices. He was getting children super excited about it.
He was just amazing.
And Mr. Z's story times were the best. And I was talking to him afterwards one day and I just said, you do such a great job with these stories. And he started opening up and he told us about how he had not grown up knowing how to read and how he wanted to give this gift to the children in our community and help encourage this love for reading. Oh,
he's amazing. He's just a great man, a lot of great values and influence in the community. He actually went on to, once he did learn to read in his early adulthood, does amazing things in the local community, actually served or serves on the local school board, which is actually really interesting, right?
Yeah.
This man who'd grown up without the ability to read is now part of the school board, helping to shape decisions that's going to help improve the quality of education for these young students coming through a system. So
Yeah.
it's just wonderful. And then there's another individual that I've become aware of, kind of tied to a university. She's a law professor and is from another country, and has actually taken a lot of her extra time and done a lot of pro bono work, organizing a number of the attorneys, the law students coming up to do a lot of immigration support and immigration support services, particularly for Hispanic and Latino individuals. But again, it's nothing that she had to do, but she sees a need and she feels a connection. And so she's taken the time and she's organized the resources, again, these talents and abilities and gifts that she has to really be a force in the community locally. And then it kind of has reached out because I think people tell people. And so there's this great resource where people can get good quality information and support in a way that helps them move toward the dreams they have.
It's awesome. And I love the variety in what we're sharing.
Yeah.
Some of it's exercise, some of it's writing, some of it's literacy, these legal services, then the ability to expand in a lot of different ways.
Another
is
example
awesome.
we had written down here is, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, right? I mean, her taking this massive leap in her life to devote her whole self entirely to serving the people of India in the different ways and places. And I don't know all of her history, but again, think about where that work began. It began in a very small and simple way with the decision and efforts of one person. And it slowly, over time and with additional resources and just kind of outreach, grew and grew into what it had become at the time of her passing. And so, again, we're not saying that anyone has to go out and devote their whole life to something, but even if her work had only been what she accomplished in that first year, it would have had a tremendous influence on things.
And her name is now synonymous with goodness. Like if you want to talk about someone who's good, Mother Teresa is what you hear, right? Okay, and then just one final one that I'll talk about. So
April's super excited and passionate about this one as well.
I've been doing my workouts with Caroline. I just laugh because not every morning, 5 days a week right now, I'm doing workouts with Caroline. So I mentioned in some previous podcasts that I've had some health issues, and I found that I need to really move my body every day in order to have my stomach process things correctly. So I was looking online for someone who was doing some weightlifting and some pretty intense exercises online. And I found Caroline Girvin. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she has this awesome YouTube channel. And at first I was really intimidated because, we call her a beast. She's she's so strong. She just has these huge muscles. And she is so quick and is just,
she makes a lot of things look easy, but the good thing is she actually does have to take breaks every once in a while, letting all the rest of the world know that she's human. But she just got this good personality, this good attitude. She just does exercises and workouts that try to help people kind of get in a better condition, a better shape, and be better off.
And she'd been doing personal training for a long time, but then when quarantine started, she started doing some videos online for her family and some of her clients, and then it started growing and growing. And now, as we're recording this, she's got, I think, 800,000 subscribers on YouTube or something like that. And they have a Facebook group that I'm part of. I'm having so much fun in it.
Surprise.
But then in the morning, I have on my calendar, okay, I'm going to go work out with Caroline. And Caroline is just now kind of a household name, our girls.
And one of April's best friends.
My friend, Caroline. And it's helped me so much because I feel like I'm getting stronger, and she smiles and she encourages us in the workouts. And I just feel like I'm not focused right now on, so growing up, I counted calories. I was always worried about needing to be skinny. I felt like that was the focus. And now I feel like I'm being encouraged to be strong, and I love it so much. So I'm just grateful for Caroline for starting her YouTube channel. It's been awesome.
It's been pretty amazing.
Thanks, Caroline, if you're listening. Okay. All right. So any kind of final thoughts as people are thinking about the 3 principles we've discussed today, or maybe just thinking about any other ideas to help them expand in their lives?
Yeah, I think the idea is don't get overwhelmed with the idea of expand. You don't have to go do something major, start a nonprofit and get into a lot of time and energy there. I would just go back to that question I asked earlier and just say, take a moment as you wrap up listening to this podcast and just think to yourself, what are some of my talents, abilities, and gifts? And sometimes it's helpful just to write them down. Even on a Post-it note, write down a few of the talents, abilities, or gifts that you can see that you have. And if you're struggling, please reach out, text a friend right now and say, hey, what are some of the talents, abilities, and gifts you notice that I have? And then just take a moment with that information. Once you have it, Again, this should all take 1 to 2 minutes. Resolve to do one thing this week that uses one of those talents, abilities, or gifts to have an influence on somebody in some way, in some little situation you're in, a group that you participate in, and just take note of how it feels to be able to do that thing, have that lifting influence, and just that satisfaction, that feeling of reward that you feel, but also the way that you've blessed or lifted somebody through that effort.
And if you want to share any of the thoughts that you're having or any additional comments or resources or things that you think our community would love, come to learndobecome.com/episode 116 and just leave it in the comments. We would love to see that. A couple other links that may be helpful. First of all, we have an Arise membership that's going to be opening soon, and this Arise podcast series is in preparation for that. But this is going to be a really fun membership where we're going to be able to work more on a personal level with the community in these 6 key areas of focus, and you can find all of that information and get on the interest list at learndobecome.com/arise.
That's Arise with an E at the end. ARISE.
Okay. And then we have a fun connect page, just learndobecome.com/connect, that has links to all of our social media channels, our YouTube channel, podcast.
And we'd love to have you engaged there
yeah.
in the way that you enjoy, right? Some people like reading posts, some people like listening to podcasts, some people like the social media side of things. But we just encourage and invite you to become connected with us in the ways that you are most comfortable with, just so we can stay connected. Because truly, as we're doing these things in Arise and we built this community here at Learn to Become, we're most excited about being all fellow travelers together, learning and growing together with the things that we all find and share with each other that can make our lives better, happier, and truly help us be able to give back in meaningful ways. So we love our community. We're so grateful to have you with us listening, and hope this podcast has been helpful to you as you think about how you want to arise, how you want to expand, and have that positive influence on the world around you.
All right. Thanks so much. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you soon at learndobecome.com.